you got to stay alive, son. You do whatever you have to do.
But then I always tell you, honey, if I just stayed in place and never spoke up, good things are bound to happen.
Well, you're suggesting a hijacking? No, not only did I have my best men on that flight, but each one of those cases were monitored.
The person that set that bomb today was there with Tess in that so-called Hall of Patriots.
An Oscar nomination, Emmy wins, starring roles alongside Hollywood's biggest names. Yet for 30 years, one of America's most respected actors lived a secret that could have ended everything. The question isn't why he hid it, it's how he survived in an industry that would have destroyed him for telling the truth.
Son, don't get too used to this place. Because wherever he is, I'm gonna love you. Loving me.
This is Paul Winfield's story, a tale of extraordinary talent, forbidden love, and the price of being authentic in a world that demanded you pretend.
This was a real cake before the man outside put all these holes in it.
Oh, now that don't make no difference.
By the time you reach the end, you'll understand why his legacy is more complicated than any role he ever played. Born on May 22nd, 1939 in Dallas, Texas, Paul Edward Winfield came into a world that had already decided what a black man could and couldn't be. His mother, Lois Beatrice Edwards, was a garment worker and union organizer, a single woman fighting for workers' rights in an era when that kind of defiance could get you blacklisted. She raised Paul alone, teaching him that dignity wasn't given, it was claimed. The family eventually moved to Los Angeles, settling into the rough neighborhoods where dreams were supposed to die. But Lois saw something in her son. While other kids played in the streets, Paul was reading Shakespeare, mimicking voices from old radio shows, transforming himself into characters nobody in their neighborhood had ever seen. By the time he reached high school, Winfield wasn't just talented, he was undeniable. Teachers noticed, classmates noticed, and when he auditioned for the drama club, something clicked. This wasn't just a hobby, this was survival. On stage, he could be anyone. In real life, he was learning he'd have to hide who he really was. He attended the University of Portland on scholarship, then transferred to Stanford University, and finally UCLA. Education wasn't just about getting a degree, it was about access. In the late 50s and early 60s, opportunities for black actors were scarce and stereotypical. You played servants, criminals, or invisible background characters. Winfield was preparing for something different. In 1968, Winfield landed his first major television role on Julia, starring Diane Carroll.
Mr. Cameron.
Mister, is our relationship going to be so formal?
The show was groundbreaking, the first series to feature a black woman in a non-stereotypical professional role. Winfield played her boyfriend across multiple episodes, and suddenly, casting directors were paying attention. Here was an actor who could bring depth, intelligence, and gravitas to any scene. But television was just the warm-up. In 1972, everything changed. Director Martin Ritt was casting Sounder, a Depression-era drama about a Louisiana sharecropper family struggling to survive. The role of Nathan Lee Morgan required someone who could convey quiet strength, overwhelming love, and crushing dignity despite impossible circumstances. Winfield auditioned, he got the part, and he delivered a performance that would define his career.
Another season sharecropping for old man Perkins, working ourselves to death so he can get richer and we can't even eat when cropping time is done.
When Sounder premiered, critics were stunned. This wasn't just good acting, it was transcendent. Winfield brought such authenticity to Nathan Lee that audiences forgot they were watching a movie.
That was some journey you went on, boy.
Daddy, I'm so glad you're home.
Me too, son.
The Academy noticed too. In 1973, Paul Winfield received an Oscar nomination for Best Actor, becoming only the third African-American ever nominated in that category. Think about what that meant. Sidney Poitier had broken the barrier in 1958. James Earl Jones followed in 1970. Now, Winfield. 3 black men in 15 years. The odds of winning were slim. He lost to Marlon Brando for The Godfather, but the nomination itself was revolutionary. Winfield had proven that black actors could carry prestige films, that their stories mattered, that Hollywood couldn't ignore them anymore.
I mean, literally put the book down, called my agent, and said, I've just read this most wonderful book. I know it's going to be made into a movie.
His co-star in Sounder was Cicely Tyson, who also received an Oscar nomination for Best Actress. On set, something unexpected happened. Tyson and Winfield developed a deep connection. After filming wrapped, she offered him a place to stay. They lived together for about 18 months in the early 70s. To the outside world, they looked like a couple. Hollywood gossip columns speculated about marriage, but here's what nobody knew. During that time, living together, Winfield confided in Tyson about something he'd been hiding his entire life. He was gay. In an era when being openly gay could obliterate a career, especially for a black man trying to navigate an already hostile industry, this was dangerous knowledge. Tyson didn't judge. She protected him. She gave him space to be honest, even if the world couldn't know.
And then I got a message that George Scott did not want the wig, and he wanted me with my natural, so I just got rid of the wig.
In 1975, Winfield made a decision that would change everything. He left Hollywood and moved to San Francisco, a city where the gay community was building something unprecedented, a place where people like him could exist without completely hiding. It was there, in the Castro District's burgeoning scene, that Winfield began to accept himself. He met Charles Gillen Jr., an architect and set designer, sometime around 1972. Their connection was immediate and profound. Charles understood the impossible position Winfield occupied, a rising star who couldn't afford to be authentic. They began a relationship that would last 3 decades, conducted entirely in the shadows. Think about what that means. 30 years of love, partnership, and commitment that couldn't be photographed, publicized, or celebrated. While straight actors brought partners to premieres and posed for magazine covers, Winfield attended events alone. Charles remained invisible, the most important person in his life erased from the public narrative. But Winfield's career didn't slow down. In 1977, he appeared in Twilight's Last Gleaming alongside Burt Lancaster.
Man, I had mere in my outfit that could shoot the out of a rat at a quarter of a mile,
proving he could hold his own with Hollywood legends. The following year brought one of his most significant roles, portraying Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the television miniseries King.
Negroes have been intimidated and humiliated and oppressed.
Playing King required everything Winfield had. The cadence, the conviction, the moral authority. He had to embody a man who'd become a martyr while remaining human and flawed. Critics praised his performance, and he received Emmy nominations for the role. Here was another layer of irony. Winfield playing a civil rights icon while hiding his own identity to survive in an industry still plagued by discrimination. In 1982, Winfield entered the science fiction pantheon with Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. He played Captain Clark Terrell, the Starfleet officer whose mind gets controlled by Khan's parasitic creatures. It's a memorable death scene, Terrell fouting Khan's control before ultimately turning his phaser on himself.
What's the delay?
All is well, sir. You have the coordinates to beam up Genesis.
Science fiction fans embraced Winfield immediately. The role introduced him to a younger generation and cemented his versatility. He wasn't just a dramatic actor, he could navigate any genre with equal skill. Then came 1984 and The Terminator. Winfield played Lieutenant Ed Traxler, the skeptical police detective trying to protect Sarah Connor while dismissing Calories' warnings about killer robots from the future. Alongside his partner, played by Lance Hendrickson, Winfield brought humor and humanity to a film that would become a cultural phenomenon.
To make a statement, maybe make these jackals work for us for a change. If I can get on the tube by 11 o'clock, maybe she'll call us.
Watch those scenes closely. Winfield's performance is the audience's proxy. He reacts to the insanity with the same disbelief we'd all feel. When the Terminator attacks the police station, Traxler's shock and horror feel genuine. It's the kind of supporting performance that elevates an entire movie. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Winfield worked constantly. He appeared in Presumed Innocent with Harrison Ford, and the preparation he put into that role reveals everything about his process.
But ladies and gentlemen, Mr. D. LaGuardia is asking a question based on his assumption that there was something going on between Mrs. Savage and Miss Bohemus.
In an interview, Winfield described reading Scott Turo's novel and immediately calling his agent. He knew 2.5 years before filming that he wanted to play Judge Lauren Lytle. Other actors competed for the part, but Winfield got there first.
I didn't know the circus was in town. I take it these magnums are not filled with champagne.
He was everywhere, LA Law.
Because black is why you picked him. He has nothing to do in this trial. I doubt he even believes in your client's innocence.
Murder, She Wrote. If there was a quality television show in the 80s or 90s, Winfield probably appeared on it.
Archie Miles was like a father to us. We didn't just like the guy, we loved him, all of us. So believe me, we want to see his killer go down permanently.
Directors loved him because he never phoned it in. Every role, no matter how small, received his full commitment.
Wait a minute. Alexander Black, the magician, right? I took my son to see your show last year at the Palace. Fantastic.
In 1995, Winfield finally won an Emmy for Outstanding Guest Actor in a Drama Series for his role in Picket Fences. He played a judge presiding over racially charged cases, bringing authority and nuance to every moment. After multiple nominations throughout his career, the win was validation, proof that television recognized his contributions. But while his professional life flourished, his personal life remained hidden. Charles Gillen was always there, supporting Winfield through every triumph and setback, but never acknowledged. They built a life together in private. Dinners at home, vacations away from cameras, quiet moments that couldn't be shared with the world. The secrecy took its toll. Winfield struggled with his weight, battling obesity throughout his later years. He developed diabetes, a condition exacerbated by stress and the emotional burden of maintaining a public persona so different from his private truth. But he kept working, kept pretending, kept surviving in an industry that would have punished honesty. In 2000, Winfield appeared with John Williams and the Boston Pops Orchestra at Tanglewood on Parade, narrating the unfinished journey. It was prestigious work, the kind reserved for actors with gravitas and respect. By this point in his career, Winfield had appeared in more than 125 films and television shows, a staggering output that testified to his work ethic and talent. Then, tragedy struck. On March 5, 2002, Charles Gillen Jr. died from bone cancer after a prolonged battle. The man Winfield had loved for 30 years was gone. There was no public obituary linking them, no media coverage of Winfield's loss. He grieved in private, attending a funeral where few understood the depth of what he'd lost. Winfield continued working. In his final years, he narrated the television series Touched by an Angel, bringing warmth to stories about hope and redemption.
But don't fight against him, fight for him. If you can't find the love in you, let God love through you.
But friends noticed changes. The light had dimmed. The weight struggles worsened. Diabetes has become harder to manage. On March 7, 2004, just 2 years after losing Charles, Paul Winfield died from a heart attack at Queen of Angels Hollywood Presbyterian Medical Center in Los Angeles, California. He was 64 years old. His sister, Patricia Wilson of Las Vegas, survived him. The obituaries celebrated his career. The Oscar nomination, the Emmy win, the iconic roles. But most never mentioned Charles Gillen or acknowledged the 30-year relationship that defined Winfield's personal life. Here's what the obituaries didn't tell you. Winfield died without significant wealth, despite decades of steady work. His estate was modest. Estimates suggest his net worth at the time of death was around $300,000 to $500,000. For someone who appeared in so many successful projects, that number reveals the reality of being a working actor. Unless you're a leading star with points on the back end, you earn a living, not a fortune. The tragedy of Winfield's story isn't just that he had to hide who he was. It's that he died before the world changed enough to celebrate him fully. Just a few years after his death, attitudes about LGBTQ actors began shifting. Neil Patrick Harris came out and his career flourished. Jim Parsons, Matt Bomer, Zachary Quinto all found success as openly gay actors in ways Winfield never could. Think about what Winfield could have been if he lived in today's world, the roles he could have played without fear, the relationship he could have celebrated publicly, the young actors he could have mentored. Instead, he spent his entire career hiding, protecting a secret that would have been celebrated a generation later. His influence extends beyond the roles he played. Winfield paved the way for Black actors in prestige dramas, proving they could carry Oscar-worthy films. He showed versatility across genres: drama, science fiction, comedy, action. He brought dignity to every character, even when the material didn't deserve it. In 2018, he was inducted into the Black Filmmakers Hall of Fame, recognition that came 14 years too late. The ceremony celebrated his groundbreaking work, but Winfield wasn't there to accept the honor. Charles wasn't there to see the man he loved finally acknowledged. The recognition rang hollow, a reminder of how we celebrate artists only after they can no longer hear the applause. Contemporary actors cite Winfield as an influence, even if they don't know the full story. Denzel Washington, Idris Elba, Jeffrey Wright, all working in a tradition Winfield helped establish. He proved that Black actors could be romantic leads, authority figures, complex anti-heroes, and everything in between. The LGBTQ community has also begun reclaiming Winfield's legacy. Organizations like the Legacy Project Chicago have honored him as a gay pioneer who navigated Hollywood's hostility while maintaining artistic integrity. His story resonates with anyone who's ever had to choose between authenticity and survival. Look at what Winfield accomplished despite the obstacles. An Oscar nomination when only 2 other Black actors had achieved that honor. An Emmy win after years of outstanding work. Respect from every director and actor he ever worked with, all while carrying the weight of a secret that could have destroyed him. The real scandal of Paul Winfield's life isn't that he was gay, it's that he had to hide it. It's that Charles Gillen loved him for 30 years in silence. It's that an entire generation of LGBTQ actors, particularly Black gay men, had no visible role models in Hollywood because people like Winfield couldn't risk being honest. Watch Sounder again, knowing what you know now. Watch Winfield's performance, the quiet strength, the suppressed emotion, the dignity maintained despite impossible circumstances. He wasn't just playing Nathan Lee Morgan, he was channeling his own experience of navigating a world that demanded he be less than his full self. That's the devastating brilliance of his work. Every role contained hidden layers, subtext that only makes sense when you understand what he was living through. The authority figures are hiding vulnerability, the strong men with secrets. The characters fight for recognition in systems designed to erase them. Paul Winfield's legacy is complicated, painful, and ultimately triumphant.